So welcome to this webinar. My name is Stephen Threadfield. I'm Head of Product Management here at itslearning. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Bart van Kibenade, who is one of our longest serving product owners, and he's been driving forward our cloud integration and a lot of our assessment tools. And we're also joined by Hannah Orenson, and she's a product owner who's been concentrating on the new homepage and trying to make sure that what we're doing in terms of workflow and bringing better changes to how people first experience itslearning have been talked to with a lot of teachers, a lot of tutors, a lot of institutions. So we're going to go through this presentation today, really talking about what's coming in the next few months. We're not talking about our long-term roadmap. You can see that on our website. We're going to concentrate on the features you'll get your hands on next weekend when we have a release, and then each month, more or less until September, when we know everybody will all be back and working through their new semester. This is the second of a series of webinars that we've been running. We ran one on working with Office 365, which was like a deep dive into how we work with Office 365. If you missed that, you can easily find it. Just search for O365 itslearning, and you'll find that if you just put it into Google or something. Today we're going to be looking at the main features that we have coming across the summer, and that's happening today. And then for those of you that are interested, we have a similar deep dive as we did for Office 365 on our Google integration. We're going to cover that as a sort of a highlight view today, but we're going to do a deep dive on the 21st at 10:30 Central European time. You can see all of these on our various, on YouTube and on Twitter and so on. So you can just find those and relive them, and you can join again if you want to. As we go through, we're really happy to answer questions. There's a tool that you'll see in GoToMeeting, which is the tool that we're using now to view this presentation. It's a questions tab. If you open that up, you can then type in a question. And what we're going to do is, while Bart's speaking, Hannah and I will try and answer questions. And then when we turn over to Hannah, then we'll try and answer questions. And then when I'm speaking, then we'll have Bart and Hannah answer questions. We'll do our best to answer everything that we can. Please pop in your questions as we're going through. A couple of people have emailed questions, and we'll try and address those as we go through. It's a good idea normally to wait to the end of the section, just because when we're talking about some of the features, we'll finish with sort of summaries and so on. The first question that most people have is, when are these things being released? And what we'll do, we'll either tell you if they're going to be very soon, which is literally the next few weeks, whether they're early summer, which for us is into July, or whether it's late summer, which is August, and then maybe just into September. So that's how we're trying to categorize when these things are being released. Of course, sometimes, as we all know, these releases change, and sometimes things get slightly delayed, but all information we're giving you is open and honest and absolutely our best understanding as it is today. So first thing I'm going to do is hand over to Bart, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what we've got, what changes have come with cloud, and that covers both Google and it covers Office 365.
All right, thank you, Stephen. So as Stephen said, I will talk a bit about our cloud productivity integration, where we integrate with Office 365 and G Suite for Education. But I will focus mainly on what we either recently released or will release in the upcoming months. And as Stephen mentioned, we have other webinars that offer more of a deep dive in either Office 365 or G Suite. So let's start off. What are we trying to achieve here? So in general, one of the goals we have at itslearning is to make it very simple for our users to use their preferred cloud productivity tools together with itslearning, whether those tools are from Google or Microsoft or maybe even both. With a few clicks, it should be possible to add a document, a course resource, assignment answer, etc. So I will start now zooming in on some of the recent and upcoming changes to our Google for Education integration, also known as our G Suite integration. And after that, I'll do the same for Office 365. I was going to zoom in on our G Suite for Education integration. Some of the highlights we've done there. Our first improvement is a more administrative one, but can be used to make sure things just work for your teachers and students. Previously, they would manually have to connect their account, but it's now also possible to do this automatically by extending the current integration you have with your SAS or MIS. And one particular case where this really adds value is the single sign-on we have on Chromebooks using our Chromebook app. That just works for users when this is all automatically set up. Pre-connecting accounts is something we've just released. So if you're interested, please reach out to your local itslearning subsidiary. I mentioned single sign-on being one of the benefits of a connected account. The other benefit is the possibility to upload a document from Google Drive. And adding from Google Drive is something that has been possible in itslearning for many years, but we're making a couple of improvements here. Again, focusing on making it much easier, much simpler to add a document. And I've actually recorded a video here where I'll briefly demonstrate this. I'm in a plan and I want to add a document from my Google Drive. So what you can do is just click Add, go to Google Drive, and you will see the most recent files you worked on, and you can add them to itslearning. So I would even say it's so easy that if you blink you might have missed it. So let me run the video again. I click Add from Google Drive. You see the most recent ones, and you can just simply add them to itslearning. It is still possible to open the Google Drive picker, so if you want to add another file that maybe you haven't recently worked on, that will also be possible. Now we will release this in two stages. Quite soon actually we will make it much easier to add from Google Drive, fewer clicks to add from Google Drive to the planner, and then soon after we will also introduce that recent filter you just saw in this video. Now we basically talked about Google Drive, and with that how you can add Google Docs and Google Sheets and slides, etc. to a course. But one other popular G Suite tool is Google Calendar. itslearning does have its own built-in calendar, but you might prefer the one from Google. And this way you can have information from itslearning next to any other calendars you might have. You know, many people have their personal calendar in Google, but you can also have the calendar of your institute or your department in Google Calendar. And this way you have a one-stop shop, or one overview of all your to-dos, of all your whole planning, if you will. So let me show you how this integration worked. I again recorded a video before I hit play. On the left we see a list of your courses. For each itslearning course we'll create a calendar if it has something to show in Google Calendar, if it has events for example. And then next on top we see assignments or tests or anything from the task list of itslearning on that due date. And in the middle you can see course events if you have those. So you might have an integration with your schedule with itslearning. If so, then also that schedule will be synced with the Google Calendar for itslearning here. And from the calendar it's very simple to see more details of an event in itslearning. So let me hit play and show you how that works. So for example, this lab report assignment, I can simply click open in itslearning. itslearning opens, automatically logged in, and I'm taken to this assignment. So in this case, as a student, I can just answer it. Also for events, if there's more information to show, if you can't add anything and everything to Google Calendar, simply click on the link and it will take you to event details in itslearning. So in this example there is an excursion and there are some choices students need to make, and they can register beforehand in itslearning. This is actually something we're releasing around this time, but we first plan to do some pilots to make sure we capture all scenarios correctly, and then over the summer, after the summer, if all goes well, we will enable it for all sites. So if you want to use your G Suite integration, you can then also use the Google Calendar integration with it if you want. Next I want to talk about an extension to the Google Chrome browser, which allows you to push any website you are visiting to an itslearning course. And again, this is something just reducing the amount of clicks of getting things done. So in this example, I'm on YouTube. I found a video that I think could help some of my students. So what can I do? Let me just hit play again. I can simply click the itslearning icon next to the address bar. Then choose how I want to add this web page. I choose a bulletin to which course I want to add it. and optionally I can provide some more information to my students. So I hit add course and it's already done, but I can check by clicking view in itslearning what the end result looks like. And there the video already is. So you don't need to be in itslearning, you can just be on any web page you're working on. You could in theory be on Google Drive, working on a Google Doc, or maybe even in Word Online and using this Chrome extension, push the content into itslearning. Alright, now the last Google tool I want to talk about is Google Hangouts Meet. We're actually quite early in the development process here, so I don't have any video to show here. But what we're trying to achieve here is, well, twofold, if you will. One of them is to allow our teachers to plan online meetings, maybe an online lecture, maybe an FAQ session, which you then can include, and maybe include in the plan or just in general add as a resource in itslearning. And the other practice we want to support is to extend our instant messaging system so our users can also start a video chat with each other. And of course, any e-safety rules or privacy rules will be respected there. As I said, development is just very early, so we expect this late summer or early autumn. That's all for our G Suite updates. We have many more G Suite integrations. And if you want a full overview of that, please join us in a separate deep dive webinar on June the 21st. Next, I want to give you some highlights on our Office 365 integration, some of the things we either recently released or we're about to release in the upcoming months. As Stephen mentioned, we already had a webinar here. So if you want to see more details, please check out the recording of that webinar, and it will show you those details. As I said, I will only focus on the most recent changes and the upcoming changes. The first change is actually something we've just released that allows teachers to pick an Office document and make a copy of that document for each student that starts answering the assignment. This is quite a long flow, so I haven't included the video for it. Again, check out the recording of the Office 365 webinar if you want to see more details. But I have included some pictures here that show the high level of the flow. First of all, the teacher can, after they've uploaded an Office document, choose to make a copy for each student. And then a student, if they're going to answer that assignment, as soon as they hit answer assignment, a copy of that document is made, and the student can use Word Online or Excel Online or PowerPoint Online, depending on the template file, to start writing their answer. This has a couple of benefits. Well, first of all, for the student, it offers them a framework or a scaffold, if you will, for their assignment answer. But also for you as a teacher, this gives some consistency when reviewing or assessing the answers in our all-in-one grader. You know, all students work in the same format. The workflow or the permissions are handled by itslearning, so itslearning will also make sure that if a student has submitted the work and it's under review by the teacher or the tutor, that at that point the student can no longer edit the document. But maybe if they need to resubmit the document, then permissions will be given again. One other change we recently released is an update to our OneDrive picker, currently focusing mainly on accessibility. So making sure it works well with keyboard shortcuts, but also with, let's say, screen readers. But also that it works well on all devices and screen sizes. But under the hood, there have also been a lot of changes preparing for something else, and I will talk about that in a couple of slides. First, I want to mention that the changes we also saw for Google Drive, making it very simple to add from Google Drive to a plan or to a course as a resource, that is also something we're bringing to OneDrive. Here you see our Quick Add menu with the option to select from OneDrive. And you might notice the difference here. The picture on the left says OneDrive, while the picture on the right says Office 365. And that actually relates to the next slide. This is what I was talking about the preparations we also made with our OneDrive picker, because we also are going to make it possible to select from SharePoint sites, and with that also your Microsoft Teams sites. And with that you can leverage the power of collaboration in Office 365, work together with your colleagues, perhaps on a new curriculum, and bring those documents into itslearning to also benefit from the power of pedagogy that itslearning offers. This is something we expect late summer to be released. And this was actually the last slide on my list. Now I want to hand over to Hanne, who will talk to you about our new homepage and task list.
Thank you, Bart. Hi, I'm here to present our brand new homepage and task list in itslearning. As you can see, the new homepage has a new look and a new background color, making it easier to differentiate it from other pages in itslearning. Let me quickly start by explaining why we are introducing a new homepage. We know that lots of itslearning users visit this page every day, so the homepage, being the face of itslearning, needs to look great and engage our users. We also know that our users log into itslearning for a reason. Most likely they're here to either check for updates, see what's upcoming, or just jump into a course. So, what have we done to address those needs? As you can see, the new homepage presents your starred courses as colored cards and gives you an easy access to each course. Just click the card and it will take you to the course you want. If I click the course to the left here, Politics, I will go to the course page for this course Advanced. The two other main tasks I mentioned was to check for updates and see what's upcoming, both part of the daily workflow for our users. Maybe students want to check if there are any new information in a specific course, and as you can see from this image, students will see the tasks for this week and new announcement. And the page is easy to scan for information. We can see that the course English Literature with Creative Writing has no updates. We just see the colored course card. But in Politics, the student has 5 tasks for this week and 1 new announcement. Announcement will be the new word we use for bulletins. And if this student completes 3 of those tasks, the information on the card will be updated and it will say that the student now has 2 tasks left. The student's progress will immediately be reflected on the card. And if the student goes to this course, the new announcement will be removed from the course card as well. If we switch to Teachers View, we can see that teachers will see their follow-up tasks in each course. I have logged in here as a teacher named John White. And in my course English Literature and American Studies, I have 5 follow-up tasks. And in my course Art History, I have only 1. You can also see my photo and my name on some of the courses, but not all of them. That's because this teacher, John White, he shares some of his courses with other teachers. Teachers and other users can also sort courses in many different ways to make the page work exactly like they want. And you can find the sorting options to the top right. Users can choose to sort by last updated, last visited, or alphabetically. And if they choose last updated, we will display this date on each card. They will also be able to drag and drop their courses. And if they prefer to search for it, they can do that as well. And I also want you to pay attention to the 2 icons you can see on each card. We have a star and we have a pencil icon. All the 4 courses listed in the first row are starred courses. You can see that the stars here are filled and that the star in the section Other Courses is not filled. And you will receive updates and notifications from all your starred courses. If you don't want that, you can simply click on the star icon to mute your course. Unstarred courses are still available at the bottom of the page, like the course I have here, English Literature with Creative Writing. And please notice that you need to be a member of a course to be able to actually see course cards. only teachers and admins will see a pencil icon on each card. When clicking the pencil, this modal will open and teachers will be able to edit the course card. All changes made here will affect all members of the course. And we hear students complaining about long and difficult course names, and we also know that many teachers will have courses with almost similar names. Now they have an option to give their course a friendly name. The friendly name will then appear all over its learning. In the calendar, it will appear on course overview page, in the task list, etc. But a friendly name will never appear in any official document. In such documents, we will always use the course title. In my example, the course title is really long, 3 HIS/101 History 3 Ancient History, and I want to have a shorter but still descriptive name, so I would just call it Ancient History. All my students will then see this friendly name, Ancient History, used on the card and all over its learning. And I can also select another color if I don't want to have this pink color on my course. I know that not all schools want to allow the teachers to give their course a friendly name or change the color of the course, so teachers will need permission to change this. And if the setting is not enabled for teachers, they would just see a read-only state here. But we do want the course cards to stand out. The teacher in the course will, as I mentioned, be presented with name and an image on the card. Adding a photo will make it easier for students to find and recognize their courses. And in this modal, you can see here that teachers are able to select which teacher to present on the course card. For now, we can only select one teacher, but very soon we will actually be able to select multiple teachers to present on each card, if that's wanted. And as Steven mentioned, before we started to work on the homepage, we spoke to many of our users. And our interviews and user research clearly revealed that many students, especially older students like those in higher eds, they are satisfied with the existing homepage in its learning. They are used to this kind of newsfeed from social media, and our existing homepage enables them to find and navigate to specific content faster than going to each course to hunt it down. But we also learned that still many students didn't like to process information from all courses at once and actually got confused. So to make all users happy, we have introduced two tabs. We have courses, where we will show course cards, and we have updates. So when students log into itslearning, the previous start page with all the tasks and updates is just a click away. And itslearning will remember what tab students or teachers are using. So if they navigate away from the home page and then returns, they will see the tab they prefer, the last one used. And if they prefer a simple and more visually engaging homepage, they will actually use courses. But if they prefer this more detailed overview of what goes on in all their courses, they will go to updates. And updates give students a clear overview of what they need to do next. Students will find recent updates there to the left, and they will find our new task list to the right. The task list focuses on what's currently important for them and hides for future tasks. It gives a clear, concise summary of what activities are expected for the students in all their courses. And the two sections, due today and due tomorrow, will be expanded by default. Tasks that have expired will automatically be removed to keep the list clean. This will prevent an accumulation of old and outdated tasks in the list, and students and teachers do not have to go in and manually remove them. And of course, you will also find the new task list on course overview page. Here we will also show tasks with no deadlines. This section will be at the bottom of the list and will by default be collapsed. We will be rolling out the new homepage and the new task list over the summer. Please note that if you have defined another start URL for your site, for instance, school dashboard or calendar, users will only see the new homepage when they click home. It will not be their start page. Thank you, and it's over to you, Steven.
Okay, so lots of other features coming. Some of them I know that some people on this call have been very deeply involved with, because Eva Sund, who's our product owner for higher education, has been working directly with some of the institutions to make sure we've got some of this functionality right. So a lot of you will have seen this before, but some of you won't have seen it. So some of the things we have created in this section have been created specifically for higher education. I'm thinking here of the mass broadcast, which I'll talk about now, but also the attendance light system, which I'll talk about towards the end. So first thing I wanted to say that we have coming this summer, it's something that we're turning on for higher education institutions first, is the idea of being able to communicate en masse to all of my students that are in my institution. So not just sending to one course or a couple of courses, but being able to reach out and, for instance, talk to every single student or every single member of staff and send them a message. That will appear in their It's Learning messages, and it will appear on their app. They can't reply to it. It's a one-way communication. What we've tried to do is have a sort of a unique way of handling this within It's Learning, so you can give access permissions to just those members of staff that are trusted and you want to make these sort of communications. So I can see a list of all of the items that I've sent out. I can see who has looked at them, and that of course can be quite a long list if you've sent out maybe to the many tens of thousands of students that you have in your institutions. Setting these up is really simple. I basically pick a hierarchy, which could be everything, so in other words my entire institution. I pick the type of users from the roles, I put in the message, and then you'll notice at the bottom we have this idea of sender. That allows you to change who's sending it. So for instance, this could come from the library service. It could come from central admin. So what we're trying to do is to sort of reach out and provide a sort of a mass broadcast system. We've been testing this, sending millions of these messages each day. This is something that will be released to the higher education institutions later in the summer. And then, to give you an idea of what I see is I'll see, something that comes from my university, from my education establishment. I can't answer it, but I'll see it both on my app and also on my desktop as well. So it's a really nice feature. It's part of It's Learning. There's no additional cost or fees. That's one of the most common questions we get. And this is going to be something that is coming later this summer. We've already started to do some very initial simple pilots, and then we hope to roll this out later. One of the systems that we enhanced, and one of the systems that has been used in depth by some higher education institutions, some have been more wary about GDPR and other things, and that's great. They're optional, the 360 reports. These are the reports that give very detailed information about how students are progressing through a course, how they are attaining and meeting objectives in the course, and also how well they're sort of working with the course in terms of how often they're logging in, and are they engaged in the sort of social aspects of the course? Are they putting in, answers to discussion groups, and are they commenting on bulletins and so on? One of the things we've done is in the last release, we've raised up the concept of the 360. So as well as working at the course level, they can also work for what we call supervisors and mentors. This is not the same as working across the entire institution. We have something coming later in the year where sort of, scheme leaders or faculty heads will be able to look at any student and see their 360 reports. That's going to come later in the year. This is designed for mentors. So if you like, maybe the program leader. So if you're looking after the undergraduate studies for computing and you've got, a couple of hundred students who are taking that program, it's designed for those sort of people, what we call mentors and supervisors. You set mentors and supervisors up in the It's Learning admin menu. That's been there for a while. And what we've done with the 360s is we've allowed you to look across all of the students you have responsibility for. So for instance, this might also be used in the pastoral sense. You might be looking after groups of students, not so much as an educator, but thinking about their pastoral, how well are they doing outside the sort of education sphere. And I can see just the students I have permission to see, and I can see a list of all of the courses that all of my students take. And then I'm getting a summary, so I can see, for instance, looking here, that all of my students that I have, all 9 of them, have visited, you know, Earth Science in the last week. I can also see that, you know, it looks like Edith, who I've clicked on, is not really looking or attending the life science, and I might want to sort of, you know, deep dive and find out why. So I can look at Edith's activity, and I can see all of her courses. I can look at her progress and see all of her courses, and I can look at her grades and see all of her courses. Okay. And at any point, if I just go back to activity, I can put Edith in Earth Science, I can click on that, and I can do a deep dive and see what's going on within Earth Sciences. And because she takes many courses, and I'm her supervisor, I can look down through all of her courses and see this deep dive information for each of her courses. Okay. The other thing that's really good is I can flick the view, and rather than look at the students I have responsibility for, I can look at all of the courses that those students are taking, and I can see a summary of each of those. So at a glance, I can see a summary of all of my students and what they're doing in each of their courses for activity, progress, and grades. And I can have a look at the courses to see how my students within that course are doing. I cannot see the data from students that are not my mentees. I have to be their supervisor. But this is something that we think is going to be really useful for, said, pastoral care, sort of year groups and so on. And this is the sort of first stage. It's already been released. Later in the year, we'll be extending this so a faculty head or somebody can search for any student that's within their institution and see this same information. It's there now. It's a really nice little tool. And what you've got to do to use it is just set up mentors and supervisors. And then you turn on the 360 report, or we can turn it on for you. It must be, what we've done when we release this is if you already use 360s, we've turned this on. If you didn't use the 360s, it's not enabled, and it's just a case of talking to its learning rep, and we can get that turned on for you. Another system that actually went out in the last release, and we're just in the process now of turning it on for everybody. So apologies if you've not seen this in your institution. We're running scripts in the background at the moment that's actually turning this on for everybody. We released it, and then we need to go through and, if you like, automatically turn it on. It's been turned on for many institutions. We're turning it on for the last few, I think this week, early next week, so you'll all soon have it. And this is the option, and I have to stress it's an option for course teachers to allow their own students to see the 360 reports. Okay, so this is not something that is going to be turned on for everybody. Individual tutors in their courses need to opt in, but it's really easy to do. So here I am inside my course. If I go to my control panel for my course and I go to course properties and features, I'll then see three new options where I can choose which of the 360 reports are seen by the students in my course. There is a default that you can turn on as a admin within itslearning, so you guys can do this, where you can set the default to be on for everybody. We have chosen to turn that off because we know this is something that people want to opt into. So you can turn it on as a default, so every new course created automatically shows them, or your members of staff can go in and pick, I want to show the activity report and the progress report, but not the grade report. That's very common because grades are sometimes seen in other systems or they're seen in the gradebook. But the activity and the progress may be two things that you want to turn on. So if tutors want to, they can go in, turn it on, and then it's available to their students. Students, by the way, and here I am logged in as a student, will only see their data. They won't see anybody else's data. And it's important to stress that they will see the same view that the tutor sees. So there is literally no difference in the report, so they're showing exactly the same information. So they will see things like if their week-to-week activity is up or down. They will see how many of the items they've looked at. We find that the progress report showing students which of the activities they've looked at in that view, that's a really good way of bringing up student engagement. So that's the 360 reports to students. Again, apologies if those haven't hit your institution yet. We're in the process of running those scripts now, and soon everybody will have those options. If you've not opted into the 360 reports, don't worry about it. The option won't even appear. Okay, so moving on, action from the 360s, and this little video is going to run as I talk through. This is something that was added in the last release. It's there and available to everybody now. And this is really adding a little bit of interactivity and actioning from the 360s. So for instance, if I see, one of my students has not been attending, not been putting data into itslearning, been missing their assignments, with one click I can send them a message and say, this is something that we want to talk about. Mentors get exactly the same functionality. So if one of the students they're responsible for seems to be not going in, not engaging with the learning platform, not submitting assignments, they can, have one click, send them a message and say, this is something maybe we need to talk about. You can also send group messages, which are, group messages in traditional sense. Everybody is involved in this message, and you can do that from the main page. Or when I go in and look at the details, I can see an individual user and I can send an individual message. It's there now, and it's a really nice little feature, which is just allowing tutors to easily reach their students and to send them information. Another system which we have coming probably late summer, it's more or less finished, but there's a few little things that we need to change in the way the messages work to make this sing as we want it to. So I think this is probably going to be late summer now. Is the idea that you can opt in to get a short summary of what's going on in your course, and you can get this summary weekly. It's very, very simple. You can opt in and you can opt out, and I'll just let that animation running. You can see that I get a message that tells me how many students have been in my course, how many students have visited, how many of the items have been read, and with one click I can come into the options and I can turn that off. So this will be an opt-in system. People will be asked to turn this on themselves. We have told you the idea of turning it on for everybody, but we don't want to overload teachers, so we've made it really, really simple. Notification settings in the 360s, and you can turn on a weekly update, and when you're finished you can turn off that update if you don't want to get them anymore. And we've also made the decision that only course teachers will get those. Administrators that have added themselves to the course for admin reasons won't receive them. This is really for the course tutors to get an indication of what's going on in their courses. And they can turn on the courses, for instance, that they're really interested in, and maybe ones that they're just a support tutor, something like that. They don't need to get those, and they can be turned off. So again, it's reaching out and sort of putting that information directly into the eyes of the tutors so they can see what's going on in their course with a nice weekly summary. Also, by the way, just to preempt a question we often get asked, in, I think, actually the next release, maybe the release after, actually maybe it's the release after, actually, so coming in our August release, you'll also be able to export from the 360 reports. This page you see here, there'll be a little export. You can see it there at the top. That's the temporary button when I took this video last week. It's now got its own proper look and feel and it's accessible, and that will download that page as a Excel file, because we've got a lot of feedback that people want to be able to store this information, as it was maybe, last week or the week before or something, especially, when they're sat down and looking at, assessing students' work, and it's good to see what percentage of the course materials that student looked at, because that can help, determining, has the student actually been looking at the materials, and if suddenly I get a fantastic final year thesis, and they've not been looking at the materials, then I'd really want to be able to understand why. So you can export that straight from the 360s, any of those three views. So conscious time, moving on. Self-reflection and assignments. This is something which I think is really important. I know when I was a university lecturer, one of the things I did for my undergraduate students in their final year was always have them assess their own work, so I can look at how they are reflecting and self-reflecting on their work. So this is a new option which will appear in the assignment tool. It's actually going out in the next release, so you'll see this in the release notes for the release going out in a week and a bit, which is really good. You can set rubrics, so the students can look at rubrics and assess themselves based on rubrics. They can always type their own reflection, so they can say, this is what I thought, this is what I did. You can even set an assessment scale, and they can assess themselves. And then you, as tutors, will see this within the all-in-one grader. So you'll see the student's submission, in other words, their assignment, and their self-reflection on that assignment. And this is a really good way of really driving the sort of, the student-centered learning and that sort of reflection concept. So this is something that has been created really with students in mind, as opposed to sort of younger kids. We think this is something that's really going to be a benefit to universities and colleges in getting those students to reflect on what they've done. And you might even want to assess their assessments, which is something I used to do when I was a lecturer. We would actually assess how students assess themselves. In other words, the quality of what it was they were reflecting on. Okay, so we're also making sure that it's easier to link between items. So in other words, if I have an assignment, I'll be able to grab things from other places and include them in the rich text editor. This sort of easy way of being able to link the tools that you've created in itslearning together. We are conscious that you couldn't always do it from all the tools, so we're sort of making the interface easier and making sure you can do that from all the tools. The big change that we have coming, the big feature we have coming, and we've been talking to a lot of our colleagues, especially the UCs in Denmark, about this concept of having a session-based absence tracking system. This is something that will be available in pilot. It's going forward now in pilot. As soon as we have something that we think is useful, then we will look at releasing that to everybody, and then we're going to add to this as time goes on, and we're also looking at a good way to get it into the app as well. So really it's not designed for attendance in the sort of traditional sense. This is all about session-based. So are my students attending both, for instance, the lecture and the follow-up tutorials? And it's timetable-based, so providing everything has been timetabled, you can have attendance taken for it. It's a really simple system. You mark people as present or absent. There's a nice interface for sort of totaling this and viewing it, so you can see what's going on. You can see, when they've been attending, you can get an idea of their absence, and you can export it as well. So it'll be working in the app, and I think that'll probably follow a bit later than the initial release, but it'll be working really well in the app, so it'll be easier to do this on the app. It's opt-in, you can choose to use it or not. You can export it, so you can get entire sort of dumps of all of this great data, and it's session-based. It's really designed for sort of colleges and universities where students are attending many different sessions, and you want to get an idea of whether they've attended them or not. So this is something that the tutors can quickly do, and we're sort of looking at the best way to do it in terms of whether everybody is marked present and you simply say absent, etc. It's really going to be down to you to use it in the most productive way possible. So this is something that Ivar Sund has been working on. A lot of you have been talking to him about this. It's a very nice system. It's only for higher education and further education, and we'll see this released over the summer. It's already there in pilot form. We're getting some great feedback on it already, and we want to make sure that everybody has access to this. Another feature, and I think the last one that we're going to talk about, which is something else we have coming in the summer, we've had a lot of requests, especially when I've got my students who are working in groups. Sometimes they're called projects, which are collaboration areas. There's been a bit of frustration that they've not been able to use all of the great cloud integrations and cloud facilities, especially the Office Online, which is built into itslearning, where you don't need to sign up for anything. You can just collaborate using Office tools in itslearning without any need to sign up for anything. So what we're doing is making sure that those great cloud collaboration options are available within projects and groups. And this is something which I think will appear probably mid-summer, late summer, and it has the new high quality uploader as well. So it really means that students working within groups and so on will be able to have a more rich experience and leverage those cloud tools. So those are the things that we have coming over the summer. I'm sure there's been some questions that we've not answered, and I'll just see what we've got in those. We talked about tasks. I think actually, as we look through, we might have answered everything, which is fantastic. It's really important for us to get these sort of, these feedback sessions, and it's really good for us to get feedback from yourselves. A couple of quick things, just to say that, just a reminder that we have a webinar just on Google. I know most people on this call are Office users, and we've already done the Office presentation. You can search on, ironically, you can search on Google for that. Just search for itslearning Office 365, and one of the first hits you'll get back is the video of the our Microsoft Office integration webinar that we had. We've got another video coming in a few weeks. There's lots of places where you can get information on itslearning. You can have a look at the back to school site, as we call it, for higher education. I know it's a bit of almost a contradiction in names, back to school and higher education, but you know, it is just a, you know, we all talk about, even myself when I used to teach at the university, we would always talk about, you know, back to school. It just means when we're starting, when we have that new semester. And you'll see lots of information just for higher education. You can find that video. There's lots of new webinars. We've done a lot of regular webinars for HE. We like to get your feedback as we do these. And you can also, you know, see what's going on social media. Also, just one thing to say is we had a lot of requests from the UCs, especially for more detailed administrator release notes. Starting last release and following this release, we will be sending out release notes that are aimed just at administrators that maybe talk about some of the things in the background that you might want to look at setting and you might want to work with. That's something that we're trialing now. It's something that we're doing directly based on feedback. So those will be sent out for this release, and we'll be sending them out in future releases as well. So thank you very much for your attendance today. There's lots of great things coming in itslearning. We've just been talking about the summer. We've got loads of great things coming in the autumn, and we'll have more webinars in the autumn to talk about our roadmap, which will go from sort of September through to September next year. So thank you all for your attendance today. We will be sharing this video for colleagues that couldn't make it. We'll put that onto the social media and the various challenges. That's great. So thanks for attending today. Thank you to Bart, thank you to Hannah, and we'll speak to you guys soon.